Hey everybody, this is your buddy Choppadong. Instead of boring you with a long diatribe about the DFS Army, I'm just going to tell you go to dfsarmy.com, look at the link in the description of this tab, follow me on Twitter at Choppadong. This is the fastest hitting slate breakdown you will find anywhere on the web. This directs your research and gets it started for the day. So let's jump into the games. We'll come back to some of these players and build the lineup a little bit here in a minute. If I scroll up to the top here, what I'm going to tell you is how to target offenses and target games. I'm going to tell you that New Jersey and Columbus is this place to start. Columbus has the huge Vegas favorite, the huge Vegas support. Bobrovsky has had back-to-back shutouts in his last 2 starts. In his last 4 starts, he has only allowed 2 goals once, and he is absolutely as hot as it gets. He's won 4 in a row, his last 4 starts. The domination between Columbus and New Jersey goes back to the last 10 games, couple of years. New Jersey is 3-7 versus the Columbus Blue Jackets, and on top of that, New Jersey has lost its last 7 games in a row. There's only one player I would take off in New Jersey. It's Palmieri, and that's only if I'm not running Bobrovsky. Columbus is in a pretty damn good spot. New York and Florida, we got a 5.5 total, but we don't see a lot of domination off either side here, to be quite honest with you. I'm not touching either goalie. There's not a lot of activity going back. They're kind of secondary offenses for me. Going back to the Columbus game, I will mention Columbus has shot the puck 6th most often in the last 4 weeks, and New Jersey has allowed the 9th most shots on goal. So that's good activity for Columbus. Also, New Jersey's allowed the 7th most fantasy points. They're not as defensive oriented as they usually are. They're in a little bit of a slump in that category. That's why Columbus is in a good spot. Going back to New York and Florida, you've got Florida, who is shooting the puck the 3rd most in the league, and you've got New York allowing the 4th most shots getting through. So you've got a floor, you've got a high event type of game potentially here in this game. I just don't really like many of these matchups, so they're a secondary offense to me. Scrolling down, Detroit and Toronto. Toronto's the only other primary offense I would have tonight, and it's only because they tend to score points. They also go flat. They certainly allow a lot of points. Both teams are in play. Toronto's probably more of a primary offense just because they're a heavy favorite coming out of Vegas. Anderson's a cash-safe goalie tonight, most likely. I'm running Bobrovsky, but if you had to run another one because you wanted to get too cute, Anderson's a fine play. These guys, they've been kind of up and down a little bit lately, so they're not exactly cash-safe, but they're in such a good spot that I would run them in cash, if that makes sense. I'd run a couple of them. I would also jump over onto Detroit and maybe grab a Zetterberg, which we'll show you in a little bit. Both teams kind of reeling though. Toronto last 5 games they've lost. They're on a 5-game slide. Detroit is 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. So again, not a lot to really go with other than the historical season-long numbers of Toronto tends to shoot a lot and tends to give up a lot of shots, and so there should be a lot of activity in this game. Activity generally leads to some goals. Game could go 4-2, game could go 2-1. I have no idea, but I'm just telling you, Vegas tends to like it a little bit and leaning towards Toronto. Philly and Buffalo is another game. Secondary offenses, another game I'd get a couple of pieces of. There's a lot of value in Buffalo tonight. There is quite a bit of value in Philly as well. Philly in the last 4 weeks has shot the puck the most often of any team in the league. And Buffalo, as always, leads the team in giving up the most shots on goal, defensively. So Philly's in a great spot to pump a lot of pucks on net. It's how many of those can they convert. That's what we want to know. When you look down a little bit further, the St. Louis and Minnesota game's a complete fade, in my opinion. I'm not even going to spend any time on it because St. Louis has completely given up, yet their suppression in points is outstanding. That doesn't bode well for a powerful offense like Minnesota. When Minnesota, as a high-powered offense, goes up against a premium defense, it tends to suppress the points. Therefore, these guys become a little bit overpriced. I'm not a fan of either of these teams tonight. Got no faith in St. Louis, and I live here. Carolina and Colorado. This is another one. This is kind of shit on shit once again. Colorado's lost 4 of its last 4 games. They're 2-7-1 in their last 10. Carolina's 2-5-3. They cannot get it back together for whatever reason, even though they're heavy favorites, and the Vegas line is trending up in their favor. So I would kind of give a little bit of consideration to some Carolina guys if I thought any of them could put the biscuit in the basket, and I just don't buy it. So this game's more or less a complete fade for me too. Cam Ward, by the way, has lost his last 6 starts. Screw you, Cam. We're off of you. New York Islanders, Edmonton. Edmonton's a secondary offense. New York has really cooled off. They were producing at a very, very high clip about 2 weeks ago, and they have really kind of cooled off. They're on the road. I don't really trust it that much anymore. There is a little bit of value in there, but not a lot. Edmonton, on the other hand, Edmonton is 7-3 in their last 10 games. They've won 2 in a row. That puts me on Talbot as maybe my second or third option as a goalie tonight, off of Bobrovsky. And then If you think about it, Edmonton has scored the 10th most points, fantasy points, in the last 4 weeks, and New York has given up the 9th most. So New York is still allowing a lot of points to be scored against them, fantasy points wise, shots, assists, goals, whatever. So this puts a lot of the Oilers in play tonight. You wouldn't go wrong if you rostered a couple of those. Nashville, ton of value tonight, but I don't like them going up against Anaheim. Anaheim doesn't lose at home, even with a backup goalie in there. But there's so much value in the way these guys have been playing lately. They've scored the 2nd most points in the league in the last 4 weeks. They're hot. So they warrant a little bit of consideration. I just temper my expectations a little bit. Anaheim on the other side of it, they have some nice plays over there too. We'll discuss those in a little bit as well. When I scroll down here to Montreal and Vancouver, complete fade. Sorry. So when I recap, Columbus primary offense, Toronto second primary offense. Everything else is kind of a secondary one-off, maybe you take 2 skaters type of situation. New York Rangers, Florida, Philly, Buffalo, Edmonton, Nashville, Anaheim. Those teams are all in play. The rest of them are kind of off my radar. Maybe Detroit. Sorry. So let's jump over here really quick and let's figure out how we find some of these guys. When I'm looking at these guys, obviously I'm throwing the chalk goalie in there 9 times out of 10. That's just how I play. I don't get cute with goalie. Bobrovsky has a chance to shut out New Jersey tonight. He's got a chance to win the game, take on a few shots, not maybe a ton of shots, but he's going to take on some shots and has a floor probably of 5-6 points, about what he's averaging, and I'll take that. For 8,400, I'll take it all day long. When I look down here, 9, 12, 5, 6, I'm looking at these points, and only 1 or 2 bad games here. A lot of 6s and 9s. I'll take it all day long. And I've got a very, very good shot at that happening tonight. When I look at defensemen, when I look for deep value, cheap defensemen and cheap wingers, I'll show you the key to finding them. On DraftKings, activity matters. Block and goal matters. On FanDuel, you need more point scoring. You need more assists, and you need more goals. But on DraftKings, you can look for activity. When you're looking for activity, I look over the last 10 games here, and I'm looking for shots on goal plus block shots. So when I see 18 plus 23, that gets me 41. 41 over the last 10 games is a 4 on average, 4.1. Cut it in half because it's a half point per block shot and per shot on goal. So cut that 4.1 in half, you get 2. That is a 2-point floor for $3,000. So when I'm looking for a 0.6 or so average, per $1,000 spent, 0.6 points, fantasy points per $1,000 spent, that puts me right on my 2, and that's just the floor. God forbid he get an assist or put one in the net, which isn't obviously going to happen often based on what he does. But he's cheap. 4 points, 2.5, 3.5, 5. He's got a 5-point ceiling. That's great for $3,000. So how many times has he scored how many times has he scored 2 points or more? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of 10 times. And then at that price, at $3K, 1.5 points, 1 point, that's not going to kill me. He gets no zeros. Why? Because he's always blocking shots. He's always, putting the puck on the net. Good for him. I like it. For cheap, when I want to roster some studs, I've got some solid cheap value there I can count on in cash games. Would I take this guy in a GPP? No, because I would need his 5-point ceiling, and it just doesn't happen often enough. In cash, though, I need his 2-point floor. Savard, same diff. Columbus, we already mentioned, is in a great spot. 3.5K. 3.7 points per game. That's over a 1-to-1 ratio when I only need a 0.6. Why? 22 shots on goal, 25 block shots. 47. 47 divided by 10 is what? 4.7. Cut it in half. 2.25. 2.5. He's got a 2 to 2.5 point floor for $3,500. When I scroll down, how many times has he got me 2 points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A 9-point ceiling. 7, 8, 9, 10. He hasn't missed value once in his last 10 games, and he's in a great spot tonight on the primary offense I'm targeting. Hello! Cash safe. This guy's probably GPP safe, to be honest with you. Now, jump up into Boone Jenner, another situation where I'm looking for a lot of activity, shots on goal-wise. There's almost 40 shots in his last 10. There's a 2-point floor right there. Add in another half a point or so for block shots. You got a 2.5-point floor. And he's hitting it. Cash safe. Also, primary offense tonight. So if you're looking for cheap plays in cash games that you need to count on some value. Cheap punt plays that you can count on. These guys, they don't even hurt you really if they get a 0 because you didn't spend anything on them. But if they provide a 0.6 or even a 1-to-1 ratio, these guys are perfect plays. Put a couple of them in your lineup and then get this average salary back up to where you can start pumping after some studs that are going to put you over the edge in your cash games and give you some upside. Does that make sense? It sure as hell makes sense to me. Look at Patrick Eaves since coming over from Dallas. Patrick Eaves is on the first line. He's on the first power play, and he's automatically put into a primary role where he's being counted on for production, and he's responded. Over his last 10 games, he's since being traded. Look at this. I don't see a lot of shots on goal. I don't see a lot of blocked shots, which is one thing, but I do see a lot of points being scored. He's been productive when he's shot the puck. 5.5, 5.5, 3, 5. If I go down here a little bit, he wasn't as hot with Dallas, but he's got an 8 or 9 point ceiling. He's been very consistent since coming over with Anaheim. I like that. For $5,500, he's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. I'll take my chances with that in cash. It's got as good a chance as any. Zetterberg's another one in Detroit. Good Lord. Watch this. We got a 4.5 point average fantasy points per game for $5,300 in salary. This is too cheap. He shoots the puck. He's on the top line. He sets people up. 5, 5.5, 6, 4.5. Remember, we're looking for about 3.5 points. How many times has he gone over that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 10 times, and the one time you missed it was by half a point and it didn't hurt you. Cash, safe, cash, safe, cash, safe. So now I'm going to round out the rest of my lineup with a couple of these guys. I may throw Zetterberg in there, and I don't have very much, anywhere else to really go. I can spread out across the slate, target the games that I want to target. I can also upgrade because I can find a handful of these guys. If I give you a list here in the next 3 or 4 minutes, Andrew McDonald in Philly, 41 shots plus blocks. That's a 2-point floor for $3K for near minimum. Hamonic in New York Islanders is another one that I would play. Savard we mentioned. Cogliano's another one. You gotta love talking to the geek, right? Cogliano, Palmieri in New Jersey if you're not running Bobrovsky. Gauthspier, Ekbald, Jenner, Boone Jenner. Reinert in Buffalo. PK Subban in Nashville. Zetterberg, of course. Patrick Eaves. O'Reilly in Buffalo. Jossie. Oh my goodness. Let's look at Jossie really quick. Jossie's not a bad one to run. Arvidsson's another one. You got a 5.5 points for $6,000. That's great. Look at his shots plus block. He's up there at 57. It's a good floor, good activity floor. Bad 2 games, but look at the previous 8. 8.6, 9.5, 5, 7. That's pretty cash consistent. Pretty cash consistent with a decent ceiling. We like Jossie. If you want to upgrade defense, jump on him. I don't like him necessarily going up against Anaheim, but when you're playing well, you're playing well. Arvidsson's another one. Kane in Buffalo. Forsberg in Nashville. Austin Matthews in Toronto. Eichel in Buffalo again. Connor McDavid. These are all guys that you guys should be rostering. They're cash safe guys. And then you want to take your shots and stack them with a couple of guys and hope the game goes boom. So anyway, take a look at this lineup construction. Throw it in some cash games. Play some head-to-heads. I'm here to make the Army smarter. If you're not in the Army, go to dfsarmy.com and get involved. Maybe you'll meet the fantasy football geek like I do. He and I talk quite a bit on a daily basis. So once again, I'm Chapadong. Follow me on Twitter. Come to the DFS Army. Use the coupon code I throw in the description of this video. Get 20% off of your description. And enjoy breaking down these slates with me. We talk a lot more in Slack than I have time to do out here on YouTube and when I do my write-ups. So jump in, get to be friends with us. Let's go talk some hockey. Have a good one, guys.